Much for joining me for the 134th episode of the Working Lunch. The Working Lunch, as everyone knows, is that time in the day when we all get together. We're having something to eat in the UK, certainly. If you're outside the UK, you might be having breakfast, you might be having dinner, you might be having samosas on the dock, for all I know. But you're very, very welcome to the Working Lunch. Let me just check on who's joining us so far. I can see we've got Louise. Louise is talking about hot cross buns. Annette's had a hot cross bun. We've got Shafiq. Shafiq, I bet you've had a fabulous lunch today. Always do. Peter Peas is fasting till 3 o'clock. I always wait until after the show to have something to eat because otherwise my stomach will be in knots. Peter, kefir, sauerkraut, smoked salt. Oh, wow. And Peter said too many Easter eggs. So everyone who's joining us, I think we have about 147 people registered today. So thanks for joining us today. Today is a very special show. I've got a very good friend of mine I've been working with over the past 6 months, I think. And what we're going to be talking about today is the Miss America Foundation, which to call me on is an organisation that I had preconceptions about before, or didn't know much more than what I would have seen, online in the news. But there's a huge amount of work goes on behind the scenes. It's a bit like one of those iceberg diagrams. So, without too much further ado, let me bring my very special guest to the stage, Majken Mechling, and I think I'm one of the only people who can pronounce your surname correctly. Majken, good afternoon or good morning. How the devil are you?
I'm great, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. Actually, the sun has just come out in Glasgow. The clouds have disappeared, so all is good in the world. To get a fix on where you are in the States, where are you located right now?
So I'm in New Jersey. I'm in southern New Jersey. So I'm about 3.5 hours from New York City.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yep.
So, Mike, and I've been, again, full disclosure, I've been doing some work with yourselves over the
Yes.
past 6 months on events, and it's been an eye-opener for me, and I've loved every minute of it, and not just the work, but the people that I've been able to get to meet. Before we get into that, can you tell us a bit more about your background? You're obviously working with the Miss America Foundation just now, you're CEO, but you've been working with a variety of non-profit organisations over your career. Can you give us a bit of background there?
Sure. So I've spent my entire career in the nonprofit world. I've stepped out a couple of times into the private sector, but my affinity always brings me back to the nonprofit world. I've spent I'm originally born and raised on the East Coast, so I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised, fourth
Hmm.
generation. But after I
Yeah.
went off to college, I actually spent almost 40 years in the state of Hawaii. And I did nonprofit management and fundraising throughout my whole career. I've done everything from being in the healthcare arena, in the diabetes world, all the way
Hmm.
to actually, I was the executive director of the Honolulu Symphony during their transition. And I have spent a great deal of time in health and human services. I came back east for personal reasons when my father was ill, and said, okay, well, what do I want to do in the next 10 years of my career? And I was in a place where I could really kind of pick and choose for a change. And
Yeah.
for me, that net that I threw out there landed some interest with the Miss America Foundation. And I've
Hmm.
always been excited about working on women's issues and empowering women. And this was
Hmm.
an opportunity to get involved in that.
Fantastic. So on the non-profit side of things, you said you had a bit of experience in the commercial sectors. What's the big difference in working in those organisations, non-profit to the more commercial industries?
I think the nonprofit world is lean and mean in comparison to the for-profit or commercial side of the world. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you do more with less in the
Hmm.
nonprofit world. You have
Yeah.
to be more of a jack of all trades and willing to move from what you think is your skill set to other places in the
Yeah.
organization. So you have to have a lot of nimbleness to be in the nonprofit world. And
Yeah.
you have to have a passion for what the mission is. I don't think
Yeah.
you can be in the nonprofit world and not be passionate about the mission.
Yeah. I think some people sometimes have the mistaken idea that in the non-profit world, you don't have to think about commercial concerns, because my understanding is that you're always fundraising. You're always looking to find where are the funds going to come to enable us to do the things that we need to do in this organization.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people have the misconception that nonprofit organizations are part of government, right? And that they're funded, and therefore, what are they worried about? And I think nonprofit organizations are a business first. If they're successful, they function like a commercial business does. Only they have to go after their funding. They're not earning it in the same sense that a commercial business is earning it, but they are constantly in relationship with people who are going to give or get funds for them.
Yeah, so always looking for value wherever
Always.
you are, and knowing that whatever funds you raise are going to be spent, and making sure that they're spent properly, because you have a responsibility to whoever the donors were in the first place.
Yeah, I always say that in the nonprofit world, if you're going to go in the nonprofit world, the one commodity you have is your word.
Yeah.
That's it at the end of the day, and you better be true to it. Donors are very smart in this day and age. Donors have choices in this day and age, because there's a lot of good missions out there across the world, and you need to be accountable for their dollars.
How important is it for anyone in a nonprofit to be tuned into the mission of the organization, to believe in what the purpose is?
I always say, if you can't financially support it on a personal level, or you can't back it up on a mission level, you shouldn't be doing it, because people give to in my opinion, I've been around a long time, but in the 40 plus years that I've been in the industry, people give to people, not causes. All things being equal, all causes being the same, if they are, you're going to give to me because you know me, Stephen, and I say, trust that this is a good cause, as opposed to another cause. So people really have to be genuine in their support of the mission, and have to be able to articulate that.
Yeah. So coming on to the Miss America Foundation, this is, I understand, the 100th year anniversary of Miss America. Obviously, the world has changed in all of that time. So many things are completely, a world away from what they were then. What was the environment that set up the Miss America Foundation in the first place?
What's interesting, so the foundation didn't come into existence until about, originally around 2008, the foundation. Previous to that, the scholarship dollars were quasi-run by the organization itself. But as they got bigger and stronger in terms of the amount of scholarship dollars that they were actually letting across the country, it became very clear that in the eyes of the IRS, if you're just winning an award because you placed in Miss America versus you're getting a scholarship, one is considered nonprofit activity and one is considered a contest. And so we needed to really articulate that separation. And so in 2008, they started to have that conversation. In about 2010, they actually incorporated the foundation as a 501c3, which is the nonprofit equivalent in the States. And at that point, we've been independent of the organization, and most people see us as one entity. And although we are partners in that mission of empowering women, we are very separate operations.
Yeah, so you've got that charitable status, which keeps that separate. But the Miss America itself started in 1921.
So it is the 100th anniversary of the crowning of the first Miss America, which didn't have a crown the first time, but of the crowning of Miss America. And, it's interesting, most people don't realize, but the Miss America pageant, which is what it was called previously, the Miss America pageant came about as a result of the city of Atlantic City wanting to extend their season after Labor Day.
Yeah.
And how could they do that? What was it? What could they do to make that extension happen? Because as most people know, on the East Coast, the month of September is as beautiful as any month in the summer, if not more so. And so they tried to figure that out. They had kind of a big fair festival, if you will, which is where the carriages, the strolling carriages on the boardwalk came. That was part of that competition. And they second year that they did that festival, they realized that there was something to do with women and bathing suits. And so they ended up with the first bathing suit competition. And it was 100% a bathing suit competition. That's all it was. at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
first year out, and it has
So
certainly evolved.
yeah. So how did it evolve to the premise where you're empowering women, you're supporting women in their decisions and their careers and so on. Was it in the 40s that scholarships and so on began?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think if there was ever a book that's come out in the last couple of years about Miss America and the history of Miss America, I would highly
Yeah,
recommend people grab a copy of the book Here She Is, which you were
yeah.
involved with when we did the first launching of it,
Hmm.
which is a book by Hillary Levy Friedman. And
Yeah,
she is actually the daughter of Pam Eldridge, Miss America 1970.
yeah,
And
yeah.
she wrote this book, and she did such a phenomenal job of paralleling the women's movement in America with the
Hmm.
Miss America competition and what
Yeah.
that looked like along the way. And I
Hmm.
think originally it was about beauty and a bathing suit. And of course, you can imagine what a bathing suit looked like in 1921. Well, actually, in 1938, we saw BB's bathing suit. Remember that she showed at
Yeah,
the end of
yeah,
the show? That's
yeah.
not a bathing suit that most of us think of today. It was a big slab of wool, right, that they were
Yeah.
wearing. But it went from, beauty, beauty, beauty to a whole different universe as the feminist movement evolved and women started to get more notice, the right to vote, the suffrage
Hmm.
movement. Then it was like, how do we empower women through education, which in the 40s is when the scholarships first started coming in, that the
Uh-huh.
organization realized there's something to be said, because every step of the way, women are showcased in these pageants, but they're also showcased in terms of public opportunity, positioning in the workforce, politics, having a
Yeah.
voice from an activist standpoint. I mean, it's much different than what most people think of. Okay, once a
Yeah.
year, a bunch of women get up there, strut around the stage, and next. I mean,
Hmm.
it's fascinating to watch. And I think over the evolution, you've seen that we've gone from, it was a competition for bathing suits and evening gowns and beauty, to today,
Mm.
fast forward to 2018, we've
Yeah.
actually done away with the swimsuit competition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, whilst it's fair to say that contenders in the Miss America pageant, they've come through a process of maybe smaller pageants and so on and worked their way up to that, but the there's no denying that it helps to look good, but that is part of the process. And the scholarships that are involved on the charitable side are really to propel women through their career and set them up for plotting their own course in life through education. And we one of the last shows we did was to do with the scholarships for women going into medicine. So the caliber of women coming through the organisation, and I don't think that's a recent thing. So the caliber of women throughout the history has always been quite phenomenal. One of the events I was involved with, you mentioned BB there. She
Yeah.
was Miss America. Was it 1948?
I think 48, yes.
So BB Shop, Miss America 1948. She's in her 90s now. A remarkable woman, really switched on, very sharp, funny. There's no messing with BB. She knows exactly what she wants. She's totally independent woman, and all of the others that I've met who are either winners or contenders or involved in one way or another. These are not women to be trifled with, and the careers that people go on to have following Miss America, that's always been at the core from, as you say, from the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think BB actually mentioned it when we were on that live show with her.
Yeah,
And it's the competition that these candidates go through. Physical presence is one of them, because people
yeah,
need to feel good if they're going to be good, right? And
hmm,
you need to look good and feel good both physically and mentally. And they have such an ability to articulate a message. They are so comfortable on their feet. They are so easily engaged in conversation. And again, the average Miss America candidate is in the 4.38 to 4.2 grade point average. These are
yeah,
stellar women academically, but they're also incredibly talented women. And you saw this year, this past year, Miss America 2020, Camille Schreier, her talent is science. I mean, we're
yeah,
so excited that for the first time in the history of Miss America, a talent was actually a science that
yeah,
actually won the talent competition. And it's not that she just stood up there and did a chemistry project. I mean, this woman put on a show
Yeah.
because they're that successful and that talented. And if you look at the last 20 years of Miss Americas and were to look them up and see where they are. I mean, they're in politics, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're on television. I mean, they're just amazingly incredible women. So I always say, if you're looking for a strong, successful woman to put into your corporate world, find yourself a Miss America candidate.
Yeah, yeah. So in that history over the past 100 years, I'm really interested in inflection points where either contenders from Miss America have gone on to do great things to lead their own way, or that the foundation has been behind women who've done great things, whether it be in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and how you've evolved in that time. What would you say are the main inflection points in the past and in the history of the?
It's interesting. I think that, the evolution. So, when the Miss America competition started in 1921, and then in the late 30s, I think it might have been 38, talent came into that competition, which started a whole nother level of who was involved in Miss America. And you can see over the years some amazing Miss Americas who've gone on to lead successful careers in the industry, right? I mean, Lee Merriweather, who most people know around the world, right? I mean, she was an incredible Miss America. Vanessa Williams, who quite frankly was the first Black Miss America.
Yeah.
And the only Miss America that had to resign in the history of the competition.
Was she in 1982?
She was 83. She was crowned in 82, but that makes her Miss America in 1983. And she is the most successful Miss America ever. I mean, she took that challenge and went on to be nominated for an Emmy and a Grammy and Tonys and I mean, all of those things. So these women move quickly throughout their careers, whatever that path might be. I mean, in the 60s, you saw where Miss America got heavily involved in USO and really reached out to the American troops in terms of what they were doing. In 1974, an attorney for the first time crowned a doctoral student on the stage. I mean, these are bright women. 2005, we actually started the Outstanding Teens competition. So they're the young and up and coming high school age kids that are moving into these systems. And same thing, GPAs that just impress you beyond reason, that are studying at the college level in their sophomore years in high school.
Mm-hmm. So from a confidence point of view, from I hate to say the word finishing school, but in terms of young women coming up through the program, they're learning to be themselves. They're learning that education is absolutely worthwhile. That's how you get what you want in life, and hard work and dedication and working on what talents you might have.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better finishing school for, again, lack of a better term, but there is no better finishing school for a young woman than to get the confidence they get out of being in the Miss America competition. I mean, everybody sees Miss America and that's what they think of when they think of Miss America, the top 2 or 3 women in that. Hundreds and hundreds of women, thousands of women every year are involved in the system. And I think that's the piece that we're not seeing. And I keep saying, from the foundation standpoint, one of the things that we're focusing on for the next 10 years is how do we take that incredible network of women, those thousands of women a year, and funnel them into a relationship with the private sector corporations of the world or businesses of the world to allow both a win-win. Like, how do we endow a scholarship in engineering, say, through corporate relationships, and what do they get in return? Access to some of the most talented women and opportunities to interview women that they would never have just by everyday approach.
So on the scholarships, let's talk about those. Scholarships are obviously a core part of the Miss America Foundation side of the two sides of the coin. Scholarships have been around for decades now, but in what areas do you mainly grant scholarships on, and how does that work?
What's interesting, so since about 2007, I'll just give you a little window of it, but since 2007, the Miss America competition the candidates in the Miss America competition across the country have raised, in excess of $17 million for Children's
Mhm.
Miracle Network and the Miss America scholarships
Yeah.
themselves. So, you've got two levels of scholarships in the system. You've got the placement scholarships, Miss America First Runner-Up, Talent, those kinds
Mhm.
of things.
Yeah.
And then you have the non-placement scholarships, and we probably have a dozen different non-placement scholarships, everything from Women in Medicine, which is the Allman Scholarship Award that you participated in,
Yeah.
Women in Science, so we have STEM scholarship, Women in Business is a
Mhm.
scholarship that we have, social impact initiatives. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we're trying to develop outside of just what people see as traditional Miss America, because we want women who don't necessarily make the Miss National competition, because only 50
Yeah.
women are involved in that, but we
Yeah.
want all women who are candidates to have access to the scholarships I just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you needn't necessarily get to those
Correct.
televised stages. You can be earning
Yes.
scholarships at
And
other
you saw
levels.
that in the Alma Medical Scholarship. The top
Yeah.
three women who were in that competition never made it to the national level. But, I
Hmm.
mean, incredible women. One's going to Harvard for her residency in July. I mean, these are incredible women.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, at that point, this might be a good time. There was a short video that we made for the Allman Medical Scholarship, and it shows some of the. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna run that just now so that people can
Sure,
see. So give me a second. I'll just
sure.
flip this over here, and if I run this. So we can see there in practical terms, these are women in the medical field, all extraordinarily well qualified, and there were a couple of previous recipients of the scholarships who came on who are now very experienced doctors in their own right. They've gone on to have terrific careers, and it's one of those things that stands them in good stead. I imagine they would meet people and who would know they were doctors, and when asked about the background, they mentioned Miss America, people might be surprised. So you must have experience of people being surprised about the depth of work that the foundation does. Again, as opposed to what people's preconceptions of other pageants might be.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the average person, whether it's in the States or otherwise, thinks Miss America is all about, women running around in a bathing suit on stage. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, that's the first thing most people know of, and
Hmm.
that's that was televised for so long. That isn't far from the truth in terms of the public eye. But I do think that what's interesting is that we're at a place now, the 100th anniversary of Miss America, where I think both the organization in their experience and the foundation in our experience really has to educate the general public more about what a Miss America candidate really looks like and who that
Yeah.
woman is. Because I think, we're no further along, quite frankly, than we were years ago in terms of empowering women across the country. I mean, and the
Yeah.
world. I mean, when you look at 2/3 of the world's illiterate people are still women, that
Yeah.
tells you that education is still critical for women in order to
Absolutely.
empower them, which in turn empowers the communities they live in. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if we understand that educating a woman provides more for a community than not educating a woman, I
Yeah.
think people start to hear that conversation. In a perfect world, I always say I would love it if people saw that the Miss America scholarships were at a level of
Hmm.
another international scholarship,
Yeah.
because people are competing for other international scholarships, and it may be physical and academics.
Yeah.
Trust me, a talent's no different than physical and
Hmm.
academics. And why are we not on that same level of a Rhodes Scholar? Why aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're saying talent, there, you're comparing someone having a talent that they would show in the Miss America contest compared to someone being a football player or
Correct.
an athlete in any other sense,
Yes.
and getting into university and getting scholarship based on that.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is our goal. When we get to that place, because the foundation, we always say, whether there's a Miss America competition next year or not, we should be empowering women through career resources and scholarships as a foundation.
Yep.
And I think that you see that as the competition evolves and what that's going to look like over the next 10 years, it'll be much more social media related conversation than the traditional way you see Miss America, I'm sure, as they evolve. But at the same time, for us, it's about how do we make sure those scholarship dollars are there for women.
Fantastic. I have a question here from Annette. Annette Thorpe asks, bearing in mind the public perception about Miss America and other pageants, and I would just pause there. It's important, I think, that other pageants do their own PR and state what they're about, but it may well be that there's a distinction between how Miss America works and other pageants. But so bear in mind the public perception about pageants. Why is it still the case, and how can that view be changed? Should the name be changed, as the name is associated with a beauty contest? Is that something that could be considered?
It's interesting. That conversation happens all the time, as you can well imagine, inside the Miss America circle and outside of the Miss America circle. I think the thing about Miss America is it's recognizable, it's iconic. It's part of Americana. It is part of the history of our country and the women's movement. So, whether they ever change their name or not, I don't know. I think we do have to change the perception of what it is to be involved with Miss America. The foundation, does it need to be Miss America Foundation? Probably not. I mean, that won't stop us from doing what our mission is. But I do think it is time for the organizations to do a full-on press of public awareness about who these women are and where they are throughout the country. Like you said, the two doctors that were on with us, I mean, really? I mean, international skating champion, international pianist, doctor from Colombia. I mean, you're like, these women are incredible. And we don't shout that out. But, as women, I think we don't have a tendency to shout out or pride ourselves on across the world to begin with. I mean, I think we all need to stand up and say, wait a minute, you're over there talking about the football player. Let's talk about Miss America.
Yeah. So on that topic, actually, it puts me in mind of people saying that women should be quieter, women should know their place, and so on. And it is ridiculous. It's a stupid thing to say, but no one's telling men to hush up. No one's telling men to quieten down and know their place. And the truth is that women are as talented as anyone out there, and they should be able to put themselves forward and getting involved in the Miss America pageant is of course a degree of showing off. It's putting yourself forward, saying this: I can do things, I can do this. I'm just as good as anyone else, and I'm more than happy to compete. Where to an extent it's seen as unfeminine to compete, unfeminine to put yourself forward and say I can do things and be a bit show offy. When no one questions any man doing the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that you're spot on with that. And I think we just have to say it's perfectly okay for you, first off, to be a candidate, successful candidate in the Miss America system. You have to be physically fit. You have to have the endurance like a star athlete. You have to be talented. You have to be articulate. You have to be successful in your educational right. You have to be involved in your community. You have to have a strong social impact initiative. I mean, these women are like blow you out of the water, incredible women. And so that competition isn't for the faint of heart. any more than if you were competing for a national scholarship for a physical activity. And I think people need to see that and realize that. But again, we just need to keep shouting it out. This is why I was kind of excited when you asked me to join this, because I think there's such a misnomer about Miss America and what we're really promoting. And what we're promoting is women, and have been since 1921.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I honestly think that, it might be similar to compare to comic book terms, but when people look at Captain America, they're thinking of, masculine and physical and saving the world and so on. But couldn't the women come through your program be seen as just as heroic in their own way, and showing what's possible, showing what can be done. So in the coming years, as we've said there, the foundation is very much aligned with feminism and empowerment of women, or girl power, for want of a better term there. But how do you see things evolving in the next 10 years, 50, or 100 years?
It's interesting. I mean, separating out the organization and the foundation. I mean, the motto of the organization is preparing great women for the world and the world for great women. And I think that is a strong, powerful statement, that they really are preparing women to be at the forefront of any career they want to be in, in the world. And I think the backup for that is the mission of the foundation, which is to empower women through career resources and scholarships to get to where they need to go. I think, in the next 10 years, we will continue to drive a very strong scholarship conversation to really bring in the sectors of the corporate world to understand their relationship with empowering a scholarship with Miss America, and why that's important for their industry to do so collectively. And I think on the Miss America side, they're going to continue to do what they have done for 100 years, and that is to continue to bring women to a place where they can have a voice and where their voice is heard, more importantly. And that will look very different in the next 10 years, because the world looks very different in a 10-year period of time. And whoever thought we'd be doing lunch and learns like this, right? I mean, we all thought we'd be bringing our brown bag and doing it like we always did. But I think if there's one thing that the organizations can or should do, is to be open to that change and still have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely, and very well said. And that tagline, preparing the world for great women, it speaks volumes. I couldn't think of a better line. Can I just double check if there's anyone in the audience who has any additional questions? Annette, I hope we answered your question there about the naming and branding and perceptions. Graham says happy 100th
Thank
birthday.
you.
Any other questions? Louise, Audra, anyone would like to chip in?
Anybody looking for a good candidate for a job, trust me, I have plenty of them.
Well, that would be that. So actually, on the recruitment side of things, you must have recruitment organisations, and employers coming to you and looking. Is there a way that we can find a route, find a channel for candidates coming through your program that could be great contenders for?
It's interesting. We did organizationally over the last 100 years, they have not had that relationship with recruiting entities, and the foundation is really starting that project, or has been over the last year. So have people call directly into us. You've got my contact information, because we are going to try and set that conduit up for our candidates to have that ability to access. Yeah.
One last thing I'd like to cover before we leave. The thing that struck me in being involved in events with yourself in the past while is the sense of community amongst women who have been involved, not just the winners, but at all levels. I like to say to people I'm now on talking terms with 15 former Miss Americas, but the truth is that when we've had them on screen in the green room, without not talking to the public but talking with each other, the sense of community and camaraderie, and they're pulling each other's legs and having a laugh, but at the same time they've got firm friendships, and they all have that thing in common, even if they've never met personally. They all have that there, and they recognise something of themselves in everyone else who's been involved in as well, and that's really quite something to see.
Yeah, I mean, it is a true sisterhood. And, it sounds kind of hokey, but you see it. You can't explain it, but you can
Yeah.
see it like you did in the green room that day.
Hmm.
They use each other as resources. They understand the importance and significance of that bond that they have going through that. They understand each other. They know the skill set that each other brings to the table, and they're bonded for life, whether they
Yeah. Yeah.
physically met or not in that moment. I mean, you saw
Yeah.
it with those two doctors who jumped right in to mentor these young women that were coming up through the
Yeah.
Almond
Yeah.
Scholarship opportunity because they saw what it did for them, and
Yeah.
they want that for the next woman.
I do hope that it means that even if only in a smaller sense that it's something that can contend with the old boys network. If you've got the old girls network and they've got these things in common and they're giving each other a leg up, then that can only be a good thing. Can only be a great thing.
Oh, it's just awesome. And I think, again, I think these are some of the brightest, most talented, most invested in the future women that you will see. And
Yeah.
and they're available at all levels to participate in the world. And I think that it's an untapped well of incredible resource.
Yeah, yeah. Well, more power to you, Majken. It's been an absolute pleasure getting involved with Miss America Foundation in the past while, and I hope we'll continue to. And a great pleasure having you on this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me. I think everyone in the chat bar is saying thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll speak soon, but in the meantime, I encourage anyone who wants to know more about the Miss
Yes.
America Foundation, a quick search and you'll see more. In fact, I'm going to put a link. There was a bit of information I was looking at just earlier on that gives a bit more of the background. So anyone wants to know more about the Miss America Foundation, please contact me. At the top of the chat bar, you'll see a link. You'll see a link to Majken out on LinkedIn. And please, anyone, obviously, Miss America is America focused, but in terms of setting an example for organisations,
We
for
even have
women
Miss
worldwide,
America's living and working in Europe.
absolutely, absolutely, you're not barred as yet. But in the meantime, I'm going to say thank you very much, Majken, for being my guest this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure. I hope everyone joins us for our next show. Let me just double check. I thought I had it in front of me just now. I'm going to tell you where our next show is. We're going to announce it online. So we have shows pretty much every week. And with that, I'm going to wrap up for now. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Majken.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a
then.
good day,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Adios.